Chapter 50. It took 2 weeks for Jonas to improve. His legs trembled when he walked. His voice was barely more than a whisper. In the meantime, Mother and I became weaker. We had to split our 2 bread rations to feed Jonas. At first, when we asked, people contributed a portion of what they had, but as the cold crept deeper into our shacks, it began to chill generosity. One day I saw Miss Grievous turn her back and shove her entire bread ration into her mouth the moment it was handed to her. I couldn't blame her. I had often thought of doing the same thing. Mother and I didn't ask for contributions after that. Despite our pleadings, the NKVD refused to give us food for Jonas. Mother even tried speaking to the commander. He laughed at her. He said something that upset her for days, and we had nothing to sell. We had bartered practically everything we owned with the Altaians for warm clothing. The lining of Mother's coat hung thin, like fluttering cheesecloth. The approach of Christmas bolstered spirits, and we gathered in each other's shacks to reminisce about the holidays in Lithuania. We talked endlessly about Kūčios, our Christmas Eve celebration. It was decided that Kūčios would be held in the bald man shack. He grudgingly agreed. We closed our eyes when listening to the descriptions of the 12 delicious dishes representing the 12 apostles. People rocked back and forth, nodding. Mother talked of the delicious poppy seed soup and cranberry pudding. Mrs. Remus cried at the mention of the wafer and the traditional Christmas blessing. God grant that we are all together again next year. The guards warmed themselves with drink after work. They often forgot to check on us or didn't want to venture out into the biting, frosty winds. We gathered each night to hear about someone's holiday celebration. We grew to know each other through our longings and cherished moments. Mother insisted that we invite the grouchy woman to our meetings. She said that just because she had signed didn't mean that she wasn't homesick. Snow fell and the temperatures plummeted, but work and the cold felt tolerable. We had something to look forward to, a small ritual that brought relief to our gray days and dark nights. I had begun to steal logs to keep the stove fired. Mother constantly worried, but I assured her I was careful, and that the NKVD were too lazy to come out into the cold. One night, I left the bald man's shack to get a log for the stove. I crept around his shack, and I heard movement and froze. Someone was standing in the shadows. Was it Kretsky? My heart stopped. Was it the commander? It's just me, Lena. I heard Andrew's voice in the darkness. He struck a match and lit a cigarette, briefly illuminating his face. Oh, you scared me, I said. Why are you standing out here? I listen from out here. Why don't you come inside? It's freezing, I said. They wouldn't want me inside. It's not fair. Everyone is so hungry. That's not true. We'd be happy to have you. We're just talking about Christmas. I know. I heard. My mother begs me to bring her the stories each night. Really? Oh, if I hear about cranberry pudding one more time, I'll go crazy, I said, smiling. I just need to get some wood. You mean steal some, he said. Well, yes, I guess, I said. He shook his head, chuckling. You're really not scared, are you? No, I said. I'm cold. He laughed. Do you want to walk with me? I asked. Nah, I better get back. Be careful. Good night. 3 days later, Mrs. Arvidas and Andrus arrived with a bottle of vodka. The crowd fell silent when they walked through the door. Mrs. Arvidas wore stockings. Her hair was clean and curled. Andrus looked down. He stuffed his hands in his pockets. I didn't care that she wore a clean dress and wasn't hungry. No one wanted to trade places with her. A toast, said Mother, lifting the bottle of vodka to Mrs. Arvidas. To good friends. Mrs. Arvidas smiled and nodded. Mother took a small sip from the bottle and then shimmied at the hips, delighted. We all joined in, taking small sips and laughing together, savoring the moment. Andrus leaned back against the wall, watching us and grinning. That night, I fantasized about Papa joining us for the holiday. I imagined him trudging through the falling snow toward Altai, arriving in time for Christmas with my handkerchief in his breast pocket. Hurry, Papa, I urged. Please, hurry. Don't worry, Lena. He'll be here soon, said Mother. He's getting the hay for the table. I stood at the window looking out into the snow. Jonas helped Mother in the dining room. So we'll have a 12-course meal tomorrow? We'll be eating all day? He smacked his lips. Mother smoothed the white tablecloth over the dining room table. Can I sit next to Grandma? Asked Jonas. Papa's dark silhouette emerged on the street before I could protest and argue that I wanted to sit next to Grandma. He's coming, I shouted. I grabbed my coat, and I ran down the front steps and stood in the middle of the street. The small, dark figure grew taller as it approached, through the low light of dusk and the curtain of falling snow. A tinkling of bells from a horse's harness floated from the street over. I heard his voice before I could make out his face. Now what sort of sensible girl stands in the middle of the road when it's snowing? Only one whose father is late, I teased. Papa's face appeared, frosty and red. He carried a small bundle of hay. I'm not late, he said, putting his arm around me. I'm right on time. 51. Christmas Eve arrived. I worked all day chopping wood. Moisture from my nose froze and crusted around my nostrils. I kept my mind busy trying to remember details about each Christmas at home. No one swallowed their bread ration in line that night. We greeted each other kindly, and we made our way back to our shacks. Jonas looked somewhat like himself again. We washed our hair in melted snow and scrubbed at our fingernails. Mother pinned her hair up and dotted lipstick on her lips. She rubbed a bit of the red onto my cheeks for color. It's not perfect, but we do the best we can, said Mother, adjusting our clothes and hair. Get the family picture, said Jonas. The others had the same idea. Photographs of family and loved ones were plentiful in the bald man's shack. I saw a photo of Mrs. Remus and her husband. He was short, like her. She was laughing in the photo. She looked so different, strong. Now she drooped, like someone had sucked air out of her. The bald man was particularly quiet. We sat on the floor as if around a table. There was a white cloth in the center with hay and fir boughs in front of each person. One spot was left empty. A stub of tallow burned in front of it. Lithuanian tradition called for an empty place to be left at the table for family members who were gone or deceased. People placed photographs of their family and friends around the empty seat. I gently set our family photo at the empty setting. I took out the bundle of food I had been saving and placed it on the table. Some people had small surprises, a potato they had saved or something they had pilfered. The grouchy woman displayed some biscuits that she must have bought in the village. Mother thanked her and made a fuss. The Arvidas boy and his mother sent this, said the bald man, for after dinner. He tossed something out. It landed with a thud. People gasped. I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked I started to laugh. It was chocolate, real chocolate, and the bald man hadn't eaten it. Jonas whooped. Shh, Jonas, not too loud, said Mother. She looked at the package on the table. Chocolate, how wonderful. Our cup runneth over. The bald man put the bottle of vodka on the table. Now you know better, scolded Miss Grebus. Not for Kushas. How the hell should I know? Snapped the bald man. Maybe after dinner, Mother winked. I don't want any part of it. I'm Jewish. Everyone looked up. But, Mr. Stalis, why didn't you tell us? Asked Mother. Because it's none of your business, he snapped. But for days, we've been meeting about Christmas, and you've been so kind to let us use your hut. If you had told us, we could have included a Hanukkah celebration, said Mother. Don't assume I haven't celebrated the Maccabees, said the bald man, pointing his finger. I just don't blather on about it like you fools. The room fell quiet. I don't wax on about my worship. It's personal, and honestly, poppy seed soup. Bah! People shifted uncomfortably. Jonas started to laugh. He hated poppy seed soup. The bald man joined in, and soon we were all laughing hysterically. We sat for hours at our meal and makeshift table. We sang songs and carols. and after much pressing, Mother persuaded the bald man to recite the Hebrew prayer of Maoz Tzur. His voice lacked its usual pitched tone. He closed his eyes, and the words quivered with emotion. I stared at our family picture, sitting at the empty seat. We had always spent Christmas at home, with bells tinkling in the streets, and warm smells wafting from the kitchen. I pictured the dining room dark, the chandelier laced in cobwebs, and the table covered in a fine layer of dust. I thought of Papa. What was he doing for Christmas? Did he have a tiny piece of chocolate to melt on his tongue? The door to the shack blew open. The NKVD pushed inside, pointing guns at us. "Davai!" yelled a guard, grabbing the man who wound his watch. People began to protest. "Please, it's Christmas Eve," pleaded Mother. "Don't try to make us sign on Christmas Eve." The guards yelled and began pushing people out of the shack. I wasn't leaving without Papa. I scrambled over to the other side of the table. I grabbed our family photo, and I stuffed it up my dress. I would hide it on the way to the Colquitt's office. Kretsky didn't notice. He stood motionless, holding his rifle, staring at the photographs. Chapter 52. They worked us hard on Christmas Day. I stumbled from fatigue, having had no sleep the night before. When I returned to the shack, I could barely walk. Mother had given Yelishka a whole package of cigarettes for Christmas. She sat, with her feet propped up near the stove, smoking. Where had Mother gotten the cigarettes? I couldn't understand why Mother gave anything to Yelishka. Jonas arrived with Andrus. "Merry Christmas," he said. "Thank you for the chocolate," said Mother. "We were beside ourselves." "Andrus, wait a minute," said Jonas. "I have something for you." "I have something for you, too," I said. I reached into my suitcase and I pulled out a sheet of paper. I handed it to Andrus. "It's not very good, but it's a better angle, smaller nostrils." "It's great," said Andrus, looking at my drawing. "Really?" His eyes flashed up, locking on mine. "Thank you." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. "Merry Christmas," I finally said. "Here," said Jonas, holding out his hand. "It was yours, and then you gave it to Lena. She gave it to me when I was sick, and I survived, so I figure it must be pretty lucky. I think it's your turn to have it." Jonas opened his fingers to reveal the stone with the sparkles inside. He handed it to Andrus. "Thanks. I guess this thing is lucky," said Andrus, looking at the stone. "Merry Christmas," said Jonas, "and thanks for the tomatoes." "I'll walk back with you," said Mother. "I'd like to wish your mother a Merry Christmas if she can steal away for a moment." Jonas and I lay on our straw, bundled in our coats and boots. "Remember when we used to sleep in pajamas?" asked Jonas. "Yes, with goose-down covers," I said. My body sank into the straw and into the quiet. I felt the chill of the hard ground slowly creeping onto my back and up over my shoulders. "I hope Papa has a goose-down blanket tonight," said Jonas. "Me too," I said. "Merry Christmas, Jonas." "Merry Christmas, Lena." "Merry Christmas, Papa," I whispered.